Spencer Kuvin joins me now. He represents several of Jeffrey Epstein's victims. Spencer, it's great to have you with us. I've seen a couple of interviews that you've done. For my audience, clarify what the president could do right now with an executive order to make what the Justice Department and possibly what the Treasury Department knows about records, transactions, phone logs, and the like more visible.
First of all, thank you for having me on, Major. You know, I've been representing victims of Jeffrey Epstein for now going on 20 years. I represented victim number one that came forward to the police here in Palm Beach County. And every single day, they have always said the information needs to get out. Everyone needs to know not just about Epstein and Maxwell, but everyone that was involved in all of this exploitation scandal that crossed the globe. The president, as I have said before, could enter an executive order today, sign an executive order demanding the release of these documents, do as he promised the American public that he would do. When he was on the campaign trail, when he got into office, he swore to the American public that he would release this information. Sign that executive order today. I dare you to do so. Because if he doesn't, he is either choosing not to do so for some unknown reason, or alternatively, he's admitting he doesn't have the power to do it. And I don't think he's going to admit to that.
It has been said, and you have said, that there's plenty of information within the files of the Justice Department. Ron Wyden, the senior Democrat on the Finance Committee, last week said there's lots of information also at the Treasury Department. Do you agree with that?
I do. There's a lot of financial information showing the financial transactions that went back and forth between the people that were helping to fund Epstein, as well as people that were involved in the scandals and in the trade for sex for money and minor victims. That information should come out as well. You have to remember that there were successful lawsuits that were prosecuted and resolved against major banks, international banking institutions that were part of this scandal and that agreed and helped to fund Epstein's entire entourage, all of the flights, all of the paid sex for money, all of those things were financed. So let's see those records as well.
Spencer, there is a fair amount of criticism that comes in the direction of those of us in Washington who cover a scandal. We miss big things and overlook things that are central and have always been central. So I'm going to give you an avenue. Is there something that we're missing here in Washington that's central to this that we should focus on more than we have?
Well, thank you for the opportunity, because I do think that there is something that's very important to stress here, especially in the context of your previous conversation you just had. You know, there would be no Jeffrey Epstein if there weren't a Ghislaine Maxwell. That's important to understand on a fundamental level, because these young girls at 14 and 15 years old would have never approached an elderly white-haired man for a massage at his home or some type of sexual service. But when Ghislaine Maxwell came into the picture and she started talking to these girls with a beautiful British accent and well-dressed, well-mannered, you know, that is when a 15 or 14-year-old's guard goes down. This is another woman that's talking to them about this. So when they talk about giving a pardon to Ghislaine Maxwell, it absolutely makes me, just as an attorney on behalf of victims, and it just is nauseating. It is absolutely something that should never be considered. Subpoena Maxwell, bring her before Congress, and have her testify and open, under oath, testify to what she's done and who's involved.
Spencer, I talked to the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, last week, and he said we have to be very delicate about disclosures here. We have to protect the victims. And I want to go back to your first answer, because you said some of those you've represented for going on 20 years have always said, bring out this information. So help our audience contextualize this description from lawmakers, some of them sympathetic to the president. Well, we've got to be very, very careful about what comes out because we have to protect the victims. Is that legitimate? Is that something that the victims themselves, based on your interaction with them, represent for themselves as a necessary component going forward?
Listen, I've always advocated that minor victims should be protected because of their minority, because of their protected status. We absolutely can go through and redact the names of the minor victims. That is a simple task that can be done on a base level. or on videotapes that they have. They can blur the victims' faces if they're minors. But as far as the other individuals that were socializing and hanging out at Epstein's mansion in the Virgin Islands, here in Palm Beach or in Manhattan, there is absolutely no reason that those individuals should be protected at this time. They bring up a point repeatedly that if there's not enough evidence to prosecute these people, that we shouldn't disclose who they are. That is absolutely false. These individuals were socializing with a known pedophile. This is a convicted felon that was going after young girls. Whoever was socializing with him, especially if it was after his conviction here in South Florida, they should be made to answer to the general public as to why they were with Epstein and what they were doing.
Spencer Kuvin, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.